I'm back here at IMI today, and the reason I'm here today is a special day. They're uncrating the very last Moto Guzzi Baggar, the Flying Fortress MGX21, a behemoth of a motorcycle, 320 kilos dry weight, but all carbon, Italian design. What a beautiful machine. And back in 2018 they produced the V7 in carbon, the Audace in carbon, and this MGX Flying Fortress in carbon. And very few came to South Africa. I think the V7, which was a limited edition, 2 came to South Africa. The Audace, I think in carbon, only 3 came to South Africa, and this Flying Fortress, 6 came into the country. I did an episode where I had all 3 out here in the sunshine showing them off, and today they're uncrating the very last one. I think it's been in the crate for a couple of years now, but it's awesome to see it and uncrate it and hand it over and maybe even get a ride on it again. So join me, let's go uncrate this beautiful thing. Having just uncrated this Moto Guzzi MGX21 Flying Fortress, we have now wheeled it into the workshop onto the lift, and here you can see disassembled, no pannier bags on the back, and the dash flipped forward to save height in the crate. Here you can see without the right hand pannier, shaft drive to the rear, traditional Moto Guzzi. Whole bunch of matte finished carbon from mudguard. Here on the left, the dual piston Brembo calipers, a sight you also don't get to see with the panniers on. The shaft drive again on the right hand side, and you can see quite a slim bike looking from the rear without panniers on. And going forward, that entire dash flipped forward to save the height in the crate. Quite a bit of work for the guys in the workshop to do to get the PDI, the pre-delivery inspection, done and fully assembled. Here you can see another view for the dash flipped forward. Now the bike is fully assembled. Here you can see with the panniers on, it is quite a wide bike. Going forward, the dash is in place and looking good. From the side, the lines are now stunning and stylish. You can see that teardrop drooping away, the panniers at the back, and fully exposed natural carbon with a matte finish. Looking fantastic. Here again, the carbon pannier bags, both sides, hiding the shaft drive and the dual piston Brembo brakes at the back. The really powerful LED headlight. Here you see 4 kilometers factory mileage, brand new, having spent 4 years in the crate. Here I have the privilege of peeling off the plastic off the clocks, getting this bike ready for a shakedown ride, and thereafter its first maiden ride in the South African sunshine. Here you can see the really strong LED brake lights. Here she's finally out in the sun. Assembly is complete, PDI, pre-delivery inspection complete. Factory mileage was 4 kilometers. The shakedown was another 3 kilometers. So Odo on this bike is now 7 kilometers. And she has spent a couple of years in the crate, and as mentioned before, extremely special. This bike was produced between 2017 and 2018, and only 6 came to Africa. This is the last one, the 6th one to be uncrated, the last one in the country. and it spent a couple of years in the crate. Finally, she's out, fully assembled, out in the sunshine, ridden as meant to be by a bike like this. Now, more about this bike. Obviously, a Moto Guzzi, and the eagle, and here the designation MGX 21. 21 for the big 21-inch front wheel, and the MGX, that acronym Moto Guzzi X for experimental. Now, why experimental? Moto Guzzi is traditionally not played in the bagger segment, so they went over to California and together with the Americans developed a bagger and found out what the Americans look for in a bagger, and then just didn't copy and paste. And without being derogatory, baggers are traditionally heavy lumps of steel, tons of chrome, special paint job, a lot of frills and spools. Now, the Italians try to add all the requirements the American market is looking for in a bagger. I think have fulfilled most of those, but then put their own Italian flair and spin onto it. You will see there is no chrome on this bike, no chrome, but tons of carbon fiber, natural carbon fiber, and this disc covering the spokes, the front mudguard with a flare covering this cooler up here either side of the petrol tank, the doors of the bags on the side, the trimmings at the back, and this is real carbon fiber with a matte finish. Now, besides all of these cosmetics, only color available in matte black with this matte carbon finish. As mentioned, no chrome, no fancy paint job, and this is a high-tech bagger, if you want to call it. This is bringing technology to a bagger. Traditionally, they don't have a lot of technology, so here you have a bagger with 3 rider modes. You have road, rain, and sport, which is Turismo, Piaggio for rain, and Veloce for sport. And 3 rider modes. You have Brembo, really dual calipers in front, 4 pistons. You have Brembos at the back, which we saw before it was assembled with the bags on the back. So Brembos up front and rear. You've got ABS, you've got traction control, rider modes. So you really have a lot of technology here in a bagger. Yes, it's extremely heavy at 320 kilograms dry weight, but that is pretty much par for the course when it comes to baggers. The tank capacity is 20.5 liters, which is ample on a motor like this, which is quite economical. This is, if I call it the swan song, when I call swan song, I say it's the 1400cc Moto Guzzi Air and Oil Cooled, to be precise, 1380 multi-valve, mounted transversely to the frame. If you have a look here, 90-degree V twin air and oil cooled, mounted transversely, very traditional, iconic Moto Guzzi, no radiator, and being this big 1400, it no longer conforms to the new Euro 5. This is a Euro 4 compliant motor, so they have discontinued these after 2018, and therefore this MGX no longer available. And maybe sadly, or they have to move with technology. Now Moto Guzzi's launched the V100, which is the first of the liquid cooled, still mounting their motor in the iconic transverse to the frame layout. But so it's an experimental, it's something they've never done before, and as a first attempt, this is pretty much eye candy. A lot of people criticize vehicles like this or motorbikes on riding and performance, but let's just start on pure looks and cosmetics. This is a winner. I mean, where do you find a bike like this with this big chrome, carbon disc covering the spokes? I'm speaking of chrome because I'm thinking of baggers here. Have a look at this front end. Where do you see this Batmobile? It looks like it comes straight out of Star Trek. The matte black, it's got like a little bit of a shimmer in the sun. Having a look at this dashboard, also extremely unique, not this big rectangular TFT like they have nowadays. You have the old school modern retro clocks. You have your speedo around the outside, analog, your rev counter around the outside here on the right. Inside, your LCD display gives you your gear, your 7 kilometers odo, your fuel, Turismo, your ambient temperature, your kilometers digital, and here you have your radio settings, your speakers either side like winglets coming out. Here you have your modes, really simplistic layout. Here you have your cruise control, yes, cruise control for a bagger, and your joystick to go through your radio volume and all those indicators. But how cool is that? Then you go to the back and you see the lights, and if you look at the indicators, let's flick on the indicators, and here indicators together with the lights. Now that is just a modern spin on a really cool bagger. So as mentioned, traditional bagger with a modern high-tech spin to it, Italian flair with all the carbon. I must say, from pure looks, this is a winner. I know we've played with a Moto Guzzi Flying Fortress before in Cape Town, and I really enjoyed it. So this is the last opportunity to ride one like this, because they're very scarce. Now, talking about the Flying Fortress, that nickname Flying Fortress, for those of you who don't know, the Flying Fortress was a World War II bomber. It was imposing, it was a monster. It had gun turrets all around. It was called a fortress because with all the gun turrets all around, it could protect itself really well. And a fortress is normally huge, so it was a monster plane and really imposing. And this, if you see this on the road, this is an imposing sight. This is a monster of a motorcycle, and wherever you go, whether people love or hate Moto Guzzi, whether they know or don't know Moto Guzzi, everybody stops. Everybody wants to know more about this. They want to know what bike it is, who the manufacturer is, and they just want to know if it's a custom. No one can actually believe, and everybody wants to know. When I stopped at a petrol station in Cape Town, the attendant even says to me, this looks like an aeroplane. So Flying Fortress, very appropriate. I think the colors with the matte black and the natural carbon really pops, looks power. And I think what we're gonna do now is take that last ride before we hand it over, and just a fantastic piece. On a last note before we go riding, I have in a previous episode put all the carbons, because back in 2018 Moto Guzzi made a real range of carbons, starting with the Moto Guzzi V7 carbon. It was a limited edition, a numbered edition, only 1921 as per the birth year made. I did an episode on that particular one. I actually bought one of two into South Africa. There was only two that came in. Then in 2018 they also produced the Audace in carbon, which is audacious in Italian. It's pretty much this bike, but the muscle bike. So this obviously frame, and that has been strengthened for the weight of it. I did an episode on the Audace carbon as well. And then this is the last of the three carbons they produced. I did an episode where I had all three side by side, did a quick comparison, and I did an individual review on the carbon, one on the Audace, and we will ride this one again. So if you want to have a look at those, I'll blend them in at the end of this episode. Really awesome sculptures by the Italians that you can actually get on, ride, and enjoy. So without further ado, let me get on and go for that ride. When lifting this bike off the side stand, you definitely do notice the weight. This is a heavy bike, 320 kilograms, but once you have it in motion, even at slow speeds, like pulling off here at the traffic light, once you got it going at like 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers an hour, it is nimble, it's light. I think due to that 21-inch front wheel, it changes direction very quickly, very easily. It feels nimble, and just all round you feel like a Hollywood movie star on this thing. You get looks, people hooting. Fantastic. Now, just speaking about the comfort and seating position, the seat is quite low, so I get both feet flat on the floor, bent knees, but that's very much bagger style. The seat down here is wide, so it does feel like your legs are spread a little bit, but not overly so. It's something you get used to fairly quickly. The other thing is your feet are mid to forward mount, not really very far forward, but pretty much under your knees or slightly in front of your knees. The next thing, I think I'm going to go onto the highway over here. The next thing is the distance between these heads and your knees. That looks to be tight but is ample, and you really don't get that warm, but we will see as we go along with the riding. Here we go, open it up a little bit. Smooth, purring. The one thing I personally love, louder pipes. As you know, loud pipes save lives, and it's always nice to hear something. However, you also got to take into account this is in Turismo mode, Italian for touring, which is what I call the road mode, and you don't want a loud pipe. You want to cruise and hear a little bit of the wind noise. You want to hear the radio. So actually having something quiet, sedate is perfect on a bike like this. You can get aftermarket pipes. You can obviously do something about that, but there's a reason for this, and it works pretty well. This thing is purring along so quietly. It's really nice. The vibrations are pretty much eliminated at this speed. I'm doing 100 kilometers an hour. I'm doing under 3,500 RPMs, and cool, really cool. When it comes to wind protection, this little screen here, it actually looks brilliant. It's so sexy and gorgeous. However, the effectiveness, it sort of stops at your neck and chest. You can definitely hear and feel your head is out in the wind. You're stuck out there a little bit. So I do recommend take your quietest helmet that you have, or put in some earplugs. Having tested this radio before in Cape Town, the effectiveness is up really good, up to 60 kilometers per hour. You can hear the radio if you really turn it up to about 80 kilometers per hour, but then it definitely loses the effect, and then not much to talk about. But when looking at this dash, again, I must say I would not have preferred a rectangular TFT full color display like most modern bikes have today, or touch screens. This is perfect. It's old school with a bit of modern in it, retro. If you remember, the Audace only has one clock in the center. This has two clocks. Here you see your speedo. I'm shortly before 110, my RPMs. But in this LCD display, I can see ambient temperature 26, my speed 106, my rider mode is Turismo, gears 6, my odo reading is 13 kilometers, full fuel tank, all the info I want. You can toggle through the modes over here. You can have the time, the volts, charging the battery, fuel economy, your range, your distance covered, average speed, time of trip. Really more than enough information that you wouldn't expect on a bagger. So for me, how cool does this look? This is maybe not the ideal bike if you only have one bike in your garage, but if you're fortunate enough to have more than one bike, this would be your second or third bike. This is a bike for an occasion. This is definitely that red carpet event. If you want to appear somewhere and make a statement, be bold, or be just so different when you're pulling up. I can just imagine going to the Sturgis rally in America, or one of our Africa bike weeks, and you just rock up there on something like this. Doesn't matter if it's a few years old already, it's even better, because there's no replica of it. There's nothing that looks even remotely as it. It's standalone, a bold statement, experimental bike. Here rolling on in 6th gear, huge torquey motor. You can see this bike is just pulling like a tractor, and it's still very smooth, up to 5,000. I mean, the bike needs to be running a little bit, so I'm not going to overdo it, but it pulls like a tractor. Definitely it took me up to 140 without changing down, easy. So as I was saying, if you want to rock up at an event or a ride or a rally and just stand out, be different, this is the bike. It's definitely a bike for an occasion.
not an everyday bike, because practicality, it is quite huge. So lane splitting, you have to be a good and confident rider. It is quite heavy, so when you do park somewhere, you have to pre-plan on a downhill. Don't park it forward on a downhill with a pavement in front of you, because you will struggle to reverse this. This bike does not come with a reverse gear, so to push it back is not ideal. So pre-plan your parking on a bike like this. Putting it on the side stand, no problem. You really have to look down to find that side stand, but you can get it quite comfortably, quite easily. And as mentioned at the beginning, getting it off the side stand takes a little bit of muscle, but once she's upright, perfectly fine. And here on the road, feels handy, nimble, and very little input on the handlebars for change of direction. And I think that is thanks to that big 21-inch front wheel. It's just, what a motorcycle. Again, I have to say it is motorcycle art. And I just love these unicorn bikes, if I may call it that. A unicorn bike, because you don't see these kind of bikes every day. It's not a mass-produced bike, it's a hand-built bike in Mandello dell'Ario. It's something unique, something special, and the beauty of it is only 6 in Africa. And once they're all gone, how often will you see them again? And the most beautiful sight was when I had all three side by side, the V7 Carbon, the Audace Carbon, and this MGX 21 Carbon, all side by side out in the South African sun. A rare sight and an awesome episode for me to go back to and have a look at. Something I looked at before I had this privilege of the ride today. As you can see, all the traffic lights are out here in South Africa with all our load shedding, so we have to be a little bit more cautious. But going through the gears, it's not notchy, but you can hear the click, you can feel the click. You're not going to hit a false neutral. It's something I like, a positive gearbox. You just know when it's in. The clutch lever is not sloppy. You definitely need a 4-finger feel on that. But something that is hugely impressive on this bike are the brakes. The brakes are exceptional. You think a bike like this is like stopping a big truck, but with these brakes, it really, you can stand it on its nose. They are exceptionally powerful. The torque on this motor, that is beautiful. And you can just hear that little rumble come through as you rev it up a little bit. And again, the wind protection not good enough for your head, so up here wear your best helmet. But look at this, hands off the handlebars, leaning back. How is this cockpit? How is this for tracking true, stable? Just fantastic. It's not just a lump of steel that is 300 kilos of nothing. It's 300 kilos of high-tech Italian sculpture. And this matte black, like Henry Ford said, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. With these carbon edition Moto Guzzis, you can have any color you like as long as it is the matte black finish with the carbon accents. Those 3 carbon editions have the red heads highlighting that transversely mounted and oil-cooled V-twin motor in that frame. Something really special. Here we can see, picking our way slowly through the traffic. Can definitely control this bike with the clutch. You have all 4 fingers pulling the clutch lever back. You're not going to get 4 on pump, but it definitely has a bit of resistance on it. Here I'm rolling around. If you look at 20 kilometers an hour, controlling the speed, bike is stable down to 14 kilometers an hour, and I've still got both feet on the pegs, not wobbling around. So That's what I said. The bike, once it's rolling and it's in motion, the weight is hidden extremely well. So highway commuting, fantastic. This is where this bike is at home. Open road, the home of this bike. In peak hour traffic like this, it does work, but not the natural environment for a Star Trek behemoth such as this. Okay, I misbehaved there. That was third gear pull off, just to show you the type of torque on a bike like this. It is exceptional. This is like going on holiday. You just want to put stuff in those panniers and head out. Open road, complete freedom. Just love the look of this. This is just magnificent. I'm gonna sign off here and spend the rest of the day playing on this bike. I hope you enjoyed this episode with me of the final and last of the 6th MGX Flying Fortress Moto Guzzis in South Africa. I doubt we'll see many of them around on the roads. A fantastic effort by Moto Guzzi to enter the bagger market, and hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to hit that like button, give me a thumbs up if you want to leave some comments, but most important of all, please hit that subscribe button to help me build the channel. And if you like, hit that reminder bell should you wish to know when I upload new content.